Hi everyone, you are watching a devlog of my first game. And this is just an art, the visual look of the game. My first project was created 6 months ago. It means that I've been learning game dev for about this period. So now I think that it's time to finally create something worthwhile. Because I'll be working on this project alone, and it's actually the first time I've been creating the game for people, it must be something not big, not to overwork myself. This game will be available for Android and maybe for iOS. I decided to choose those platforms because I am more a mobile gamer, and I can't even remember the last time I had time to play games on PC. But when it comes to killing some time during some dull moments of your life, or there suddenly turned out the light in your street and you don't know what to do without internet, then mobile gaming comes in handy. The inspiration for this project I took from the game Contra Hard Corps, which I've been playing on Sega Mega Drive in my childhood. It was an extremely hard game and I didn't complete it till nowadays. And I want to create something similar but a bit easier due to inconvenient control on mobile phones. So the game plot will be this. The main hero had lost in the open space on his starship and he is on the verge of running out of fuel. Suddenly, he found an alien planet and he decided to land on it despite unknowing what this planet is, whether it was dangerous or not. Also, he has technologies that help him to find some materials for fuel, so he has no choice but to go out and find it. The initial step I took was to make a side view artwork that shows how I envision this game. I randomly selected the theme for the background, drawing inspiration from a picture I came across of a volcano. The next step was focusing on designing the visual look of the player. Since I'm new to pixel art and I can't create characters from scratch yet, I chose to base my design on a character namely Rex from a game Contra Hard Corps. I found a sprite sheet of this character and began the process of copying it pixel by pixel. Once I completed this initial character design, I wanted to add some variety, so I came up with an alternative costume for the player. I also used the sprite sheet as a reference to create the character's animations. I've also drawn and animated a pair of monsters. Let's name them Runner and Jumper. The Runner looks kinda similar to other monster, but I think there is nothing wrong about it, right? And finally, the artwork was done. Additionally, I drew some background decorations like rocks and pillars. Overall, now I have 2 models of the player and 2 monsters, a background and some decorations. So, now I have some visual perspective for drawing tiles for the game. The next step was to draw the tiles for my game, which was not as boring as I thought. So, I've drawn tiles for the road, slopes, platforms and walls. Then I began constructing the level with Unity tools. And suddenly I noticed that I need to make a new tile to represent a descending slope.
Oh no!
So I started to create it. In the future, I'll be creating a lot of additional adjustments to the tiles, which means I'll be having a lot of moments like this, so I'd like not to include such tiny details in my future vlogs. After drawing maps in Unity, I came to the conclusion that Unity Tools is not convenient for me, and I decided to leap at Tiled, the another tool for drawing maps. With this tool, I can draw maps and make colliders for tiles. The next step was to create a controller for the player. At the beginning of creating 2D games, I thought that making a player controller would be not so difficult, until I ran across slopes. The player began to slide down slopes, jump at angles on the slopes, and leap off while descending from them. So I've been looking into lots of tutorials about this subject, until I finally came to Sebastian League channel and his playlist about 2D controller. He suggested an alternative method for developing a 2D controller. The approach was not to rely on Unity's physics engine. Instead, he started to code his own physics by using formulas from school physics, also using algebra and trigonometry, which was tough. So now, by following this playlist, I have a good quality controller and some understanding of physics in game development. But there is one problem with this controller. When I am going up on the slope and then I quickly go down in the opposite direction from the slope and simultaneously press jump, my character doesn't react to jumping. So if you are familiar with this tutorial about this controller and had this problem, and if you already solved it, leave me comments until I solve it by myself somehow. So, after gathering the animation of the players running, controller, and the initial version of the level, I've got this result. Despite the problem I've mentioned before, I find this controller to be quite functional for the gameplay. Anyway, I hope that I'll be able to solve this problem later, after more practice. The next thing I did is shooting, and it was pretty easy. But I had to think about optimization. After the player shoots, the bullet just infinitely flies away, so I had to change its behavior. I used to solve this problem by simply pointing to static places of the zone to know where the game object needs to be deleted. But this time these zones are the camera bounce, so I had to get the bounce of the camera view somehow. To figure out how to do it, I had to ask about it my good friend. Let's name him Pedro. Pedro, will you help me?
Of course, bro.
And then he gave me this pretty handy code. What I'm left to do is copy this code and make a few modifications to it. So now bullets successfully disappear. Thank you, Pedro.
You're welcome.
Then I made that bullets could collide with other objects and disappear. Additionally, I've drawn sparks from the player shooting and the sparks of bullets collided with walls. The next step was the creation of some initial prefab of the enemy. I applied to it gravitation as it has the player. Then I made the enemy disappear when a bullet collided with it. As I added a visual look to my enemies, the game began to take on more of a game-like appearance. However, to make these enemies look alive, I'll need to add some behavioral logic to them. So first of all, I started creating the logic for the runner. My intention was to restrict it from jumping, focusing solely on moving from side to side. Then I want him to react randomly on the collision with the player. The first behavior is to run in the opposite direction after hitting the player. The second behavior is to run through the player after hitting him. The final point was to add an animation for running to it. And the runner was done. Afterward, I started to create a jumper logic, which was harder to make. I aimed to restrict this enemy from running and make him move to the player's position solely by jumps. After the first try to make the logic, I observed that the jumper was moving a bit horizontally, so it was chasing me too fast.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
So then I fixed it. And finally I added an animation. So we have a player that can shoot, and a variety of monsters, along with a basic level layout. At this point I think that it's enough for now. There are a lot of things else to do, new monsters, some bosses, an upgrade system implementation, and so on. Thanks for a like and a subscription, and see you later!